Hello and welcome. So glad to have you with me today. Today we are going to be chatting about changes we see in the iris, and we're going to be looking at before and after photos of broken bones and surgeries. And so this could be a really enlightening time. I invite you to pop questions into the chat box. I also would love it if you would say hello. Let me know that you're there and that you're awake. And we are going to be talking, as we talk about this, we are going to be blowing some myths out of the water, right? Because there has been so much research, and there's so many old ideas that are hanging on, and there are so many old ideas that just are wrong information. So it's so good to have you with me, and it's so good to see people saying hello in the chat box. So glad you're here. All right, let's go back to where it all began, where the myth all began. Okay, and I'm not talking about iridology as a whole concept. I'm talking about a specific concept. How many of you have heard the owl story? If you've heard the owl story, give me owl in the chat box. You've heard the owl story. It goes like this. Young man, 11-year-old boy named Ignaz von Petschle in Hungary, apparently caught or trapped a bird of prey. We think it was an owl. And he said that in catching this bird, he noticed that the bird had a black line in its iris. As he worked with the bird and nursed it back to health, the black line disappeared. Now, here's the challenge we have with this. Number one, he was an 11-year-old boy. That doesn't mean that 11-year-old boys make up stories. It just means he was an 11-year-old boy. He had no equipment with which to document this, and it has not ever been documented since. Now, wouldn't you think that with all of the bird sanctuaries that are out there where people can take injured birds of all kinds, not just birds of prey, but all kinds of birds, that someone would have seen something similar? I mean, that's given him 150 years to prove the point, right? And no one has replicated it. Now, we also want to take into account that a bird's iris, just like most animal irides, is a different structure from a human iris. And we cannot extrapolate from a bird to a human because of those structural differences. So we need to take this owl story and tuck it back into the corner with the fairy tales and myths, because extrapolating from an owl to a human is just simply creating a fairy tale or a myth. So for some of you who are familiar with iridology and you've heard this story and you've been relying on it, please put it away. Shanna says, I had a similar experience as Ignach, and I took in a hurt owl, but I never saw a change in its eyes. Their eyes are very interesting. Yeah, their eyes have an entirely different structure. Thanks for sharing that, Shanna. You're the first person who's ever told me that they've had a similar experience and could validate that what I'm saying is correct. So thank you for that. So let's look at some actual photos. These are my eyes. And this was, I get new iridology equipment periodically, and I experiment and I take photos, and, I practice on myself a lot because I don't like torturing other people while I'm practicing. And so I had gotten a new lighting setup for my camera, and in 2017, it was a whole new camera. And so I took photos of my eyes. So this was March 17th, 2017, as I was experimenting with this new camera and working to see what the camera was like. Now, what I want you to look at specifically is this area right here that the arrow is pointing to. This, on a Jensen iridology map, is the left arm. The left arm. Now, this is going to be very important because, so this is my before picture, 2017. 13th of March, 2019, almost exactly 2 years later, I slipped on some ice, landed hard on my hand, broke my wrist in 2 places. This is me in the ER, swollen wrist. It's not usually that deformed, waiting to be worked on. These were my x-rays. There's one break. It's a really good break. And here's the other break. I don't read x-rays. I don't know. There were two breaks in there. My husband said they actually did try. Well, I know they did try because they knocked me out for it. Thank goodness for heavy duty drugs. They tried to do the external reduction and it didn't work. So we ended up in surgery, which is that grid pattern that you're seeing over this. That's actually, that was pre-surgery. That was the first cast they put me in just to keep things stable. So went for surgery, ended up having two surgeries in one because two bones, different bones were broken and they both needed repairing. You probably can't see it now because I've healed very, very nicely. You probably can't see the scar. There's a scar right here between the tendons and there's another scar down here. You can actually kind of see the plate that's in the side of my arm still. So that's all fun and dandy. But I actually did have the clarity of mind to take photos. My camera was on different settings, which is why the colors are different. But notice that those lines are just the same. They're no worse, they're no better. There's no dark line coming down between there, just the same. So that is after breaking two bones and having a double surgery with plates and screws installed. I do not set off metal detectors yet. I've tested it. We have flown since then. Perfectly fine. So there we are. There's the plates and the screws that held my arm together so that it could actually heal. And there's another view of it a couple weeks later when we went in to get out of the surgical cast and to put a proper cast on. And that was what my arm looks like the day they changed the cast. So there's that initial scar on the one side and the one down the side of my arm. All right, so I kept taking photos because I wanted to see, would I ever see a change? So here we are a couple weeks later, still no black line, nothing in there. These are the same. Right now, my camera is handheld, which means that it may look like things have rotated slightly. And that's just when I'm doing photos of myself. It's really hard to make sure everything is perfectly level. So let's look at these three photos then, all side by side. March 2017. We've got this. March 2019. The color difference again is because the settings were different. I had presence of mind to take photos, but not presence of mind to check my settings. And then 2019, again, it looks like it shifted a bit, but that's only because camera wasn't level. It's really hard to get a level photo when you can only use one hand, right? So then just to prove the point, just to test this right to the nth degree, and just to see where we're really at, on Mother's Day that year, so just 2 months after the first incident, I fell down the stairs while visiting my son for Mother's Day, and I broke my olecranon. I did not even know I had an olecranon until I broke it. I had no idea that's what it was called. When they took the photo, you don't do an external version or an external, an external version with this. Or not version, reduction with this, because you've got to have a way to hold the two pieces of bone together. So we ended up in surgery again. And there I am waiting in the ER. My elbow doesn't look like this normally. Chana says you had to make sure broken bones don't change the act. I did. I had to make sure. I just had to prove it. I will tell you, that in all of this, especially on the one that happened on Mother's Day, where I had my young grandchildren around, I did not utter one word I should not have uttered in their presence. I will say that all I said was, oh my, oh my, oh my. Jessica said, would you say the brightened fibers in that area indicate that the body, that area of the body would be more prone to injuries or breaks? Not necessarily more prone to injuries and breaks, but certainly a little more prone to inflammation, right? And inflammation attracts acid, which can then create weaknesses in certain areas. So it is possible, not necessarily probable. Okay, because the eyes again show the predisposition, they don't show what the actual chemistry is. So we can't tell Hopefully my diet's clean enough and my lifestyle is clean enough that I don't have that kind of an acid buildup that would weaken a bone, or would weaken other structures, but being human, who knows? So here I am again after surgery. Now I'm sporting a cast that goes, a surgical cast, half slab cast that goes around my elbow. I discovered, for those of you, if you ever break an arm, you really want to use surgical scrub tops. They are perfect for a broken arm. Sleeves are big enough to get your cast through, and they've got lots of pockets. And that makes it easy to carry things when you've only got one useful hand. So this is what my eyes look like now. I wasn't quite as on the ball to get the photos immediately, but this is what it looks like a few days later, or a week or two later. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Now, why did the eyes stay the same? Why didn't we see a black line? That would be because the irides show us genetic potentials. And when you break a bone or when you have a surgery to a body part, it's not changing your genetic structure. It's not changing your genetic potential, right? So the idea that this could have been an indication that that area might be prone to a little too much acid, that that could possibly weaken the bone, that's a possibility. But the fact that the breaks in the surgeries, I can't pass the break in the surgery on to children, right? It's not in my genes, so it's not going to change the eyes. Chan is asking, did anything change in your sclera? I wish I had had the presence of mind to do sclera photos, but I did not. Thought I was doing good to remember to do the iris photos, right? How can there be a genetic potential towards inflammation in any one area of the body? Weakened cells in that area, perhaps? So the genetic potential, again, is going exactly to that. So it might have been the risk of weakened cells in that area. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know everything there is to know. I only wish I did. Shanna's saying bummer. Yeah, bummer, right? Thanks for the sympathy there. That I didn't have the foresight to think of doing sclera photos. So they redid my my wrist x-rays to make sure that the fall hadn't done anything there. And then in that corrective surgery, I now have wires and hooks in my arm, in my elbow, that held the olecranon up against the arm bone. I should know what that's called, but I don't, so that it would hold it in place while it healed. So continuing, took more photos, again on different settings, which is why this looks brighter and whiter. The fiber structure is still there. You'll notice that from one to the next photo, sometimes these fibers are a little more wavy. So I want to know, why would the fibers be more wavy in one photo than another? My students should know this, and many of you who've been hanging out with me should know this. I want to see that in the chat box. Why would fibers be wavier in one photo than in another? Chana says that's okay. Don't do all of that again just to make sure for this. Yeah, no, I have no plans to repeat this. And Chana's got the right answer here when we're talking about the wavy fibers. It has to do with lighting and camera setup and a change in the pupil size. So the brighter the eye, the brighter the light, the smaller the pupil, the more stretched out the fibers are. The dimmer the light, the larger the pupil, the more compressed the fibers will be. And in the compression, they go wavy. All right, so that is exactly why these fibers look like they got wavier. Now I'm going to tell you, this is just a side trip here. If you have an injury like this, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely make sure you go to an excellent physiotherapist and make sure you do whatever exercises that physiotherapy recommends. I started to go to the physiotherapist with the broken wrist. We'd had like 1 or 2 appointments. And I just had the cast off and we were starting to work on that and broke the olecranon. And so of course went back to him as soon as I had approval to go back. As soon as my surgeon said, yes, go in now. And we mostly started on wrist because the elbow, they take you out of the slab cast at 2 weeks and keep you in a sling. And you have to do things like, without using muscle, you have to let the bone, the arm extend and then you bring the bone up so you're not using muscle to dislodge things. And so originally physiotherapists said he'd never seen anyone that had broken their olecranon regain more than 70% of their flexibility, that they would always never be able to straighten out. And because my physio is a walking genius, and because he gave me exercises, which I did every day and cried through them every time, we've got really good flexion on the wrist and like 98% extension on the elbow. And so seriously, get a good physio. And I have to say that my surgeons, I had one surgeon for the wrist and another one for the elbow, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Had the same anesthetist though, which was funny. That was really funny. And the one who did my elbow was really funny because he'd also done my dad's wrist, knee, and hip. And so when I heard his name and he was talking to me before the surgery, I said, I know your name. And he said, oh, how do you know? And I said, because my dad. He said, who's your dad? And I gave him my dad's name. And he went, oh, yeah, that was wrist, hip, and knee. How's your dad doing? It was really funny, really funny. Like he remembers everybody. So funny. So quick little thing from one of my clients, and then we're going to look at some more eyes. This is Danielle Mathieu. She is a naturopath and a reflexologist. I completed my first iridology course several years ago. Since that time, I was looking for a teacher who could take me deeper into knowledge and who would be available to his teachers and happy to be so, with whom it would be easy to exchange ideas, to feel comfortable asking questions, who would not fear different points of view, and who would be ready to take up the challenge of explaining their own. In short, the rare pearl. During these years, I took several mini classes with several teachers, but I never did feel to take a full course with any of them. There was always that little something missing that made me feel like I was in the right place with the right person. And she speaks French, and so a little bit of a syntax issue there. The moment I started talking with Judith, I immediately felt comfortable with her, even though I had no contact with her before. Her welcome, her openness, and her professionalism made me feel that she was the teacher I had been looking for all this time. All the fears I previously felt about other teachers vanished immediately. I felt no hesitation in getting involved with her. I have never regretted my choice, and my expectations were met far beyond what I expected from a teacher. She knows how to transmit to us the taste for excellence, and above all, she knows how to support us and train us to become the truly competent iridologists. Love that. Really like that. So I am Judith Cobb. You've met my arm. Now you get to meet me. I am a master herbalist, natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and a certified level 3 iridology instructor and iridologist. IPA makes us upgrade our studies every 2 years. We have to upgrade our credentials every 2 years. So mine is coming up pretty soon. Need to take care of that pretty quick. And yeah, we've got pretty stringent standards here. Over the years, I've taught and designed many classes about pregnancy and children's health and women's health and herbology and iridology. And I've written a lot of books that are now completely out of print, except for the textbook for dynamic iridology, which is available only to my students because it is a digital download. I am associated professionally with CAN Pro and CAN P, which are two nutritional associations, and the Alberta Herbalist Association. So we are going to take some looks at some sclera photos here because as Chana and other students have asked, did I take sclera photos? No, I didn't. And I don't have necessarily before and after photos of sclera photos. So that is a huge gap, right? Because we don't know if this marking exists in the sclera before the trauma or if it came up only after the trauma. So we do have that gap in understanding. This is the eye of a 17-year-old daughter, or a 17-year-old young woman. She is the daughter of a client of mine. I've been caring for this family for 25 years. And so took care of mom and dad before they conceived this child. And this child has grown up beautifully. She's now in her mid-20s. In her 12th grade year, grade 12 in Canada, she, a fellow in the school decided it would be really funny to whack her on the head really hard, like just on the front corner of her forehead, with a very heavy book. And it put her into a very serious concussion. This is what we call a trauma fork or a conduction marker. No, concussion marker. Sorry about that. And what we see here is this correlates exactly to the area of the iris that would correspond to the part of her head that got hit. She pretty much almost lost her semester at school. Thank goodness the school was very patient and very generous in providing readers for her and offering her proctors to help her get through her final exams. So this was about 3 weeks after the concussion, when her mother was really on top of it. They took her to the concussion clinic and went through all of the most recent and most accurate therapies for her. And so about 3 weeks after the incident, she was able to move. And this is what we saw in her eyes. Again, I don't have image to follow up with this because they have moved to another province very far away. This is another trauma fork. Again, a bit of an impact. So you always look at the back side of this and draw a line straight down. That tells you where the impact happened when you look at the iris. You look at the width of this to see how far this impacted. With a trauma fork, one side is always very smooth and the other side is a little more wobbly looking. This tells you that there is that impact, that trauma. It can be that physical trauma, it can be a chemical trauma, it can be an emotional trauma. When the trauma fork has been there for a long period of time, it says the issue is not resolved, right? Almost like scar tissue, where there's something still going on and it's not getting necessarily healing all the way. It might, with the right therapy, it might, if it's minor enough, it might dissolve. It might totally disappear. Often it will soften in its brightness, which will tell you that there's been some healing. But if it continues to be quite bright, it means that it's not going to get any better. Jacqueline says, would a heartbreak of sorts be considered an emotional trauma? If it's serious enough, if it's really serious enough. So probably more than a single episode. If it was I'm thinking of, if someone loses 4 or 5 family members who pass away, or they become totally disaffected from family, where the family has said, we don't want anything to do with you. And that could be, where they've lost access to grandchildren and children. That could be an issue. Even if they have, could they still send you some pictures of their eyes in different positions? So I'm not understanding what you mean, Amanda. If they still send you some pictures of their eyes in different positions, we certainly would look at the iris, and we would try to get good photos of the sclera as well. And I like to reshoot photos of everything about once every year if we can, because things can develop that are not because of surgery or trauma, or the things that we see will be a result of genetic cues. I hope that answered your question, Amanda. So this is abdominal surgery. I seem to have stumble tongue today, so I should speak a little more slowly and a little more carefully. This is one of my boys, one of my sons. He was about 21 or 22 years old when we did these. We did his photos before. He had an abdominal hernia that was really had gotten quite bad. It was the result of moving heavy things at work. And I don't know what the medical system is like where you live. In where I live, he was told it would be at least 9 months till he would see a surgeon, and then probably in 9 months till he would get the surgery. So being the pit bull mother that I am, I got online and I found a doctor in a small town about 2 hours away who has had excellent references and really good client reviews, and told my son, call your family doctor, get him to refer you out to this other doctor. So this other doctor, her reviews said that she could typically see people within 3 weeks and do the surgery within 5 weeks from the first encounter. And so he went and traveled the 2 hours to do the assessment. And she said, yep, we can do this. We can do you in 3 weeks. And he said, actually, I will be going. I have a vacation planned. Any chance that we could get this done sooner than that so I could be healed up to go on my vacation? She said, absolutely. I'll meet you in the OR next week. So when we look at this, we need to look at to see where this would be sitting. So this is a right eye, and we are looking at his lower abdomen, which is sitting in this area. And it's like, yeah, not seeing anything in there. Again, look at the pupil size, different lighting. I happen to get a different lighting setup between the before and after. So we did that. It's a more gentle lighting, which means the pupil is not bombarded with quite so much light. And so again, we have no issue with any separation in fibers, any dark lines showing up. Jacqueline said, is this why he has those type of notches in the pupillary line? Are you meaning these little bits up here? And wondering if that is, okay, no, these absolutely have nothing to do with the hernia. This actually has to do the stomach and the inner pupillary border. So not at all have anything to do with the man. Okay, so full disclosure, I've had a migraine this morning. Usually it is strictly just visual. The visual has cleared up, but it has clearly jumbled my speech a little bit. And so I'm not usually this fuzzy in my communication. So thank you for your patience with me being a little bit sloppy with this today. So there is no indication of hernia repair in the iris. We've got no separation in the fibers. Don't have a black line showing up in there. All right, and thank everybody for being so supportive and and just being patient with me. I do appreciate that. This was another of my boys. He was diagnosed with stage 2 colon cancer. In 2017, he was, let me think of how old is he now? He would have been 39. And looking at his colon area, we see this kind of splattery, spotty kind of pigment, which I had been working with him on his bowel for some time. I knew there was a problem, didn't know how bad it was. The doctor wasn't paying attention to the symptoms that we were working with. And he went 3 years prior to being diagnosed. He was diagnosed 2017, no diagnosis. 3 years later, diagnosed with bowel cancer. 2 years prior to, he still is not showing any anything here except for that splatter pigment. And as the mom and knowing his symptoms, I'm thinking, we've got a problem here. Here we are 6 weeks post-surgery. Again, there's nothing there. Nothing that says cancer except for this splatter pigment, which doesn't always mean cancer. It certainly means a predisposition to something liver oriented impacting the lower colon. He has it here as well. So this is actually 6 weeks. These are both 6 weeks post-surgery. Did them with different lighting just to see if it changed anything. And we don't have any indication of fiber separation from the surgery, a black line showing up from the surgery or from the colon, nothing like that here. So what we see here is that trauma does not change the eye. Now, some of you, I know some of you were trained up in the Jensen way, you were trained up in the owl story. Do these images help you see that that owl story is not valid? That what we see in the eye is based on genetics, not based on injury. Does that work for you? Yeah. All right. So let's throw in a quick little bit about the dynamic iridology course. This is for health professionals. That means people who have had a college level anatomy and physiology course already under their belt. Whether you did that as something totally unrelated to health, but it was done at a college level, or whether you actually had to do this as a part of other health training, maybe you're a nurse or a naturopath, or perhaps you're a massage therapist or a physiotherapist, any of those kinds of things. Maybe it was required as a separate course to study herbology or nutrition. Those all count. The dynamic iridology system is designed to teach holistic practitioners or practitioners who want to be more holistic the art and science and practice of iridology, how to recognize the different indicators they see, and how to integrate iridology and iridology assessment into your work in such a way that it doesn't take extra time to assess your clients, but instead it actually speeds up how you assess your clients and how you create protocols for your clients. It also helps you to create step-by-step programs for your clients. Some of you, and I'd love to see a little show of hands, this is kind of lay it out on the table. How many of you who have already studied iridology see your client, then go off and spend a few hours assessing their eyes and creating a protocol and bring that back to a client in another session, or email that to your client just as a courtesy? If you do, give me courtesy in the comments box. How many of you do that? Because what I want to tell you about that is chances are 9 times out of 10, you are not being paid for those extra hours you spend creating a protocol for your client, right? That's not a good business model. Chenna says, I probably would have gone down that road, but not now that I know you. Thank you, Chenna. That's what I'm trying to do, is save you from going down that pathway. Now, this is really important because I don't know any other health professional or any other professional, period, doctor, lawyer, dentist, a construction worker who does home renovations. None of them give time for free. Why do you feel you need to? Right, that's a huge question. Why do you feel you need to? Really important to learn how to do the assessment in light of what your client needs help with. Build the protocol right there in chunks that your client can follow without getting overwhelmed, because we want them to be massively successful in baby steps rather than a huge failure in one step. When we give them too much information all at once, they can't follow through. They're not going to do it. They're not going to come back to tell you they failed. And likely they might say, oh yeah, she knows her stuff, but yeah, you can't do her programs. They're too complex. That's not great for business. So inviting you, if you, oh, that's a typo. It's not January 256. It's January 25th. 2024 is the next start date for the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System program. And if you've got that anatomy under your belt and you are wondering if dynamic iridology is a good thing for you, if you're thinking, is this something that you could learn, that you could benefit from, that you could use with your clients, then I'm going to encourage you to schedule a Zoom meeting with me where we can talk about your goals. We can talk about your existing training. We can talk about, could this be a good fit for you? I've put a link in the chat box, and feel free to copy that and take that moment to book that time for us to chat. It's not a high pressure sales call at all. It is a time for us really to talk about where you're at, where you want to go, and is dynamic iridology something that's going to help you get to where you want to go, right? Sophia Perez came to me already trained in iridology, and she said the commitment that Judith has for teaching is extraordinary, and the amount of support you will get from the iridology course is fabulous. The material is very clear and thorough. The pace of the course is dynamic, but with enough time to integrate all parts. As this was my second iridology course, I was not sure if the course would if the course would be an add-on, but it has exceeded my expectations. I've learned lots from the course material and classes, expanded my previous knowledge, and gained more confidence. I can see now how this course has helped me to get better answers from my clients and design effective protocols in very little time. Highly recommended for beginners and advanced. Chana says, Sophia is a fantastic iridologist. I love listening to her cases in office hours. Yeah, fabulous, right? So useful. Oh, here we go. We've got the right date on this one. So just curious, any questions, anything that you need clarified about anything we've talked about, bones, traumas, the owl story, the upcoming course invitation, anything you would like support on right now? I really value giving my students support. It is critical. Chana said she loved it. Thank you, Chana. All right. So my friends, again, the invitation stands. Veronica says this course is well organized, highly recommended. Peggy says, have a great day. Thanks. You're welcome, Peggy. So good, so good, so good. And Jacqueline says, highly recommend this course. That's wonderful. Anybody else have, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Anybody else have any questions about what we've learned today? Chana says enroll now. Love that one, Chana. Love that one. Yeah, get enrolled now. We've got some special payment plans there for new enrollees. So my friends, with that, I'm just grabbing that. And then let's see what else. Joe says, sounds wonderful, would love to. Janice says she'll see you on January 256. Shani, you were so hilarious. You've got such a great sense of humor. Carol says, thank you. This was very informative. Wonderful, wonderful. So with that, my friends, I think we are done for today. Thank you so much for being with us. Chana, thank you for the well wishes for the migraine. I can feel it lifting my speech is becoming easier. So that means that it's on its way out, which is great. And so with that, have a brilliant day. And I look forward to speaking with you soon. Take good care. Bye for now.